this is something we've been planning on doing and wanting to do, and just kind of share with y'all a little bit about us and about the day-to-day, the basic football 101 maybe. Kind of take you from a ground floor level and build you up. We're actually going to talk offense and defense in here. I'm heavily involved on both sides of the ball, so you'll see a lot of that. We'll probably go about 30, 35, 40 minutes here, and if you got questions, we'll go. I'm going to treat it just like a coaching clinic. And so we may get you up here and give some examples and let you align. I may give a test at the end and see what you know, see what you pick up. So here we go. Football in its natural state. It's really big to us right now. The way we've kind of came in here, and what is football in its natural state? There's a lot of things that it implies. It really starts with a young man started playing football at a very young age. Why? Because it was fun. And so we're making sure, and obviously we understand, the fun's in the winning. We get that. We understand that. But fun's also in the journey of building something too, and starting from a ground floor and building a young man. It's one thing to recruit. It's another thing to develop. And so we take great pride in how we develop our players, and this is part of it. So that's some of the football in its natural state. So here we go. Just basic terminology, teaching our recruits, our players. The first thing we start with, it's kind of like John Wooden said at one time when he first was teaching. The first thing he had to teach a young man to do was tie his shoes. Why? Because he couldn't get down the floor or how to put his socks on and lace his shoes up, because if he tripped over his shoestrings, then there's no way the guy can get down the floor and make a layup. So we started from the basics and this is every position group that we start with. What does the field look like? So when we talk in terms of coaching, what does that mean? When I talk above, plus above the hash, minus below the hash, on the numbers, the max line, what does that mean? That's just verbiage. So explaining, a young man, a lot of these players that we get in here, they don't understand how far it is from the sidelines to the bottom of the numbers. And then when you take a young man and you go, and maybe you're going to a bowl game and you go and you play on an NFL field, to where the numbers are already painted out there, and the difference of where the NFL numbers are from where college numbers are. And that's why you see some different lines on those NFL fields. And so, what is that? So we just start, basic, how wide is a football field? We know it's 53 1/3. I think everybody in here knows that. But I bet you didn't know from the top of the numbers, and this is what we consider the top of the numbers. Right here. So if I go tell you, true story, if I go tell you to stand at the top of the numbers, that's your alignment as a wide receiver. We literally had a young man that went and stood on top of the numbers. He literally stood right here on top. He said, "Coach, you told me to stand on top of the numbers." And he's exactly right. So we did a really poor job of explaining what we mean by the top of the numbers. The top of the numbers, and a lot of you'll see our receivers in some hash splits, or some on our splits, they'll be aligned at the top of that number. It's not just because that's where we wanted to align. That's because according to that play, how we want his adjustment, his release, and it allows him an opportunity to get inside, outside release. Some of our receivers will line up below the numbers. Hey, on this play, you're below the numbers. That means you're at the bottom of that number. Okay? So if I say, hey, we're lining up -1 below the numbers, then he knows immediately that I am -1 yard below the bottom of that number. Hey, I need you +2 above the numbers. What does that mean? That means I got to be at the top of the numbers and line up +2 toward the ball. Obviously, we know the hash marks, the hash and the numbers are very similar in how we communicate with our players. You'll see a lot of our 5-man, we'll talk that in just a few minutes. Our nickel Sams, you'll see some of that, and some of the way we pressure. We'll tell those guys, hey, I need you to align +1 off the hash. Well, what does that mean? I need you +2 off the hash. I need you -2 off that hash. So that, just like that, that's the way we communicate with these young men. They know, much like the numbers, if I tell you to line up -1 off that hash, you know you're inside that hash 1 yard. Or if I need you -4, then you're -4 yards. If I say plus off that hash, that means you're outside the numbers, or outside that hash. So plussing and minusing is a lot of our day-to-day talk with these young men. From top of number is 35 1/3 yards from the top to top. Really, as we go through that, we don't have a whole lot of dealings with that outside that we want our young men to understand that that's the width of this football field from inside those top of those numbers. Now, the big thing, and I mentioned it a second ago, from the bottom of the numbers to the sidelines is 7 yards in college. In NFL, it's different. It's wider. It moves out. So, you go out and, again, we've played on NFL fields, and you literally go out and you have to, so much of what we do is you can hear me talk about the numbers. You have to find where that dash mark is. If it's a turf field, they'll have like a little representation of what a number looks like, but it's just 2 lines, and that's where the kid has to understand of how he aligns according to where the numbers are on a college field compared to an NFL field. Got players that get into the league and they're not just struggling with it, they got to learn that all over again. From the out of bounds line to the top of the numbers is 9 yards. It's very important to understand that, because so much of what we do, if we'll tell, hey, our alignment on this play is at the top of the numbers. Your job is to, as you release, and this is the way we'll say it, as you release, if your alignment's on the top of the numbers, we need you to release to the bottom of the numbers, and on the 7th step you would make your break on a skinny. So what does that mean? It means my alignment would be here. As I release, I'm releasing to the bottom of the numbers, so I'm trying to gain width that way. It seems simple, but that's the way we talk. We talk to our players, and if you don't understand the alignments, usually alignments dictate a lot. When you look at defense, when we talk to our defensive players, it's all about alignment, assignment, and technique. Well, the alignment is critical. How are those receivers aligned? Are they aligned wide? Do you see a receiver, and you'll see if you come out to our practice field, everybody asks me, what does that red line mean? There's red lines that are painted on our practice fields. That's called a max line. All right, a max line is any vertical ball that we want to throw, we do not want our receivers pushed outside that max line. That max line from the sidelines to the max line is right around 5 yards. Okay? Right around 5 yards. We want him to hold that max line. A corner is going to try to force him outside that max line. Does anybody know why? Get him wider. It forces the quarterback to make a perfect throw. As opposed to if you can have a wide receiver hold his max line, he's got a DB, come here Will, he's got a DB that's leaning on him, he's got to lean back on him. So if Will's this DB and I'm releasing on a vertical, he's going to try to wash me past the max line. I've got to lean and hold my ground, and we tell the quarterbacks, drop the ball outside the max line. Why? That allows me 5 yards to make my move here to catch that ball. So many guys get pinned right here on the sidelines and they have to make a perfect throw. And so that's what you'll see when you come to our practice field. You'll see red line on the outside. That's called a max line for us. Let's see. Anything else, Will, that I missed on that? Yes, sir. Same thing, goal line. Everybody knows the goal line. We call the back line or the end line is the back end zone line. So much about what we do, we got several plays, especially when we get down in that red zone. We really want to work a 2-yard buffer on the back end line. And so, we would never want to hug or crowd that back end line. We want to hold that 2-yard buffer for the same reason we would want to hold a max line here. Same way with our DBs. Alignment, assignment, technique. What's the alignment of that receiver? Well, that receiver's aligned wide. He's aligned at the max line, coach. Well, if you're a DB coach, Coach Chavis and Coach Caldwell, Coach Smith, and those guys see a wide receiver aligned wide, they're telling that corner right now there's really only one route that guy can hurt you with. He's widened his splits for one reason, and that one reason is he's trying to get inside leverage of you. So take away, your alignment needs to be inside leverage of that wide receiver. The wider he goes, the tighter we want to get. We don't want to get as wide as him. If we split the wide receiver all the way out here and we brought a corner way out, we got a lot of grass in here to work with. You'll hear our coaches talk, hey man, where's the grass? Where's the open field? So that's the first thing we taught. We taught this with freshmen. Heck, when I was coaching high school ball, and we would talk this with our 7th graders. It's every year. These are things that you think are just like the young man that stood on top of the numbers. Things you think they know, but they don't know. And so this alone in itself is big for both offense and defense and understanding these rules. Okay, go ahead. Now let's talk defense a little bit. When we talk defensive techniques, this always intrigues me, but there's a because some kids again come in here and they don't understand what an over front is, an under front, an odd front. They have no clue. When we say, well, it's odd. Well, give me some numbers that are odd. Well, 1, 3, 5. Okay, great. You understand you're in an odd front if you're playing, and that number of down linemen is considered an odd front. But what technique do each one of these young men play? And we'll talk positions here in a few minutes. But when you see a D lineman aligned in a certain area, we don't refer to him, hey, go line up as a nose guard. No. We don't say, hey, go line up over the guard. No, that's not the way it's used. There's techniques that are used. We say, hey, line up in a zero technique. Well, a zero technique is just head up or shoe to shoe with a center. That's a true nose. You know, we were back in the day, they would say that's an old nose guard there. Well, it's a zero technique. Yes, he is a nose, but he's a zero. That means he's head up right over the top. If we see a guy shaded that center, we'll call him a one technique. Okay? He's still a nose, and when you start riding up, the end, the tackle, the nose, the end, he's still that nose, but he's in a shaded technique. He's not head up on it. He's shaded. Some people you see tilt their nose. They'll drop him and tilt him in a shade. If you're in considered a 2-eye, we see a lot of 2-eyes. A 2-eye is nothing more than inside eye of that guard, of the offensive guard. We all know guard, if you're on the offensive side of the ball, center, guard, tackle, obviously your ends. But a 2-eye, he's aligned on the inside of either the guard of the eye technique. We'll keep him inside. His responsibility essentially is to keep the inside arm free. He's responsible for the A gap. Everything you talk about in defense, there's gaps. And you'll hear people talk. You may hand you see something that happens on a Saturday or a Friday night. You hand a power off, and it just splits, and we call it spits. It spits out, and it goes. And when that happens, when it splits it and it gets out, then somebody was not gap sound. So you might have had a gap and you got washed, or you didn't maintain your gap integrity. So a gap. It's also known as a G alignment. So you'll see some, and you get really technique with some of this, you'll see an over G front, an under G front. That means that guy is in a 2-eye technique. Because he could very well be in a shade and still be called the same thing, but if we attach G to it, it means that shade or that nose is a little bit wider. A 2 technique is nothing more than head up. It's shoe to shoe. Again, most of these guys, they can play either the A or B gap. That's a little difficult when you start talking offensive football, because when we know if we get a 2-eye, he's an A gap player. But if you get a head up guy, and those defensive guys, they've got the capability of going B gap or A gap on you. A 3 technique is, as you see over here, is an outside shade. Again, his job is to keep his outside arm free. He's a B gap player. Now, he didn't have to always be, because they could stunt. They could what they call long stick. They could bring them across. But for the most part, if he's aligned in that technique and there's no movement, that's exactly what he's going to be responsible for, is the B gap. A 4-eye. 4-eye is the same thing like a 2-eye, but the only thing is it is off the tackle. It's inside shade of the tackle. He's a B gap player. And you see a lot of this. 4 technique, it's head up, shoe to shoe. 5 technique is just a little wider. And 6 technique is now we start talking about the tight ends. How do those defensive ends align to a tight end? All right, well, if they're in a 6 technique, if we're up there talking, hey, what do they do in tray formation? What do they do in ace formation? How do they play their ends versus tray? Tray is a tight end in 2 for us. You'll see a little bit of that in just a few minutes. Well, Well, coach, he's in a head up, or he's in a 6 technique. That means he's shoe to shoe with him. A 6 technique, a 4 technique, and a 2 technique are the same things, but over the different positions. That makes sense? So the 2's over the guard, okay, the 4's over the tackle, the 6 is over the tight end. 7 technique. The 7 technique is inside eye of that tackle. I'm sorry, of that tight end. Again, he's a C gap player at that point. You got your gaps. You see your gaps there, A, B, and C. Some are defensively, we'll call it X, Y, and Z to the left, A, B, and C to the right. Some people go A, B, C to the right, A, B, C to the left. I mean, so it's just really how you communicate. Defensively is we'll talk X, Y, and Z. 7 technique is inside. 7 technique is similar to a 2-eye and a 4-eye over their respective positions. 8 technique is a really it's a wider than a tight end. So you'll see these defensive ends, they'll line up wide, and that's an 8 technique. Usually most of the time on those guys, he'll have contain, or he'll be heavy coming off the edge. There'll be some type of pressure coming with a wide technique right there. A 9 technique, outside eye of the tight end. He's just a little tighter to that tight end, but he's still outside eye to him, and he keeps his arm free. So, again, a lot of our players, you just think if you're an offensive lineman, you have to communicate. You have to communicate daily in your room with your offensive line coach. If you're a defensive lineman, you have to communicate with your D-line coach and what technique you're in. Every call represents a different alignment for you. So if you had, well, I line up outside eye of the guard. Well, no, we don't want to hear that. We want to hear that you're in a 3 technique. And because we'll say, okay, well, you're going to line up in a 3 and you're going to stem to a 2-eye. On go, you're stemming. You'll see these guys line up and you'll see go, and those guys stem real quick before the ball is snapped. So you got to be able to communicate that. You have to be able to understand those things. It's really big in just the verbiage and how you can walk into a room and not be like, heck, some people walk into algebra and if you miss the first 2 or 3 days of algebra, the week 2 is pretty tough on you, because all the stuff you talked about week 1, week 2 is you're using that, and if you didn't get it week 1, you're in trouble. It's the same way here. You have to get this stuff early, and that's why part of our summer meetings that are going on right now is going back to basics, teaching young men how we call things, what basic pressures look like. So that's what's going on right now. Next. Now, so as you look at this, let's talk about this. Now you're going to hear an over front, an under front. An over and under front, just basic call here, is off of a 4-down. It's a 4-down, and really we talk under front is nothing more than we look at when we declare the strength of a formation. And let's talk about that too. What is the strength of a formation? Defensives call their strength according to where the tight end aligns, or where the back aligns. If they're in a balanced formation, a 2x2 formation, where is the back aligned? If all things are similar, most people call the strength of a formation to the field. Okay, and so in this case here, the tight end is now set to the boundary. So we would call this one of 2 ways. If we were talking offensive football in here, I would tell you, because we don't care about this, we only care about how they align. We'll call our strengths to the field, okay, from an offensive standpoint. So we would say this is an under front. That means he is in anybody know what technique that is? 3. He would be in a 8, a wide 8, that's right. He is in a 2-eye or a shade. If he was tighter to that center, we would call it that 1 technique, or a really tight shade. He is in a 5. Yeah, a 5 at that point. Okay? He's in a 5 technique. And we would say, and now, so our communication, if we were sitting here game planning, we'd say, okay, if he's in a 5 technique, well, isn't a 5 technique here, and also a 5 technique is here? Absolutely. So we would say, all right, Will, we want to know, as they break these things down, Will, are they in a wide 5, or is he in a tight 5? A lot of that everybody's trying to find where's the bubble at. Let's run to the bubble. So that's considered an under. An under front is, we call the formation or the strength to the field. Where do they align the shade? If they align the shade inside, or the nose, where do they align him at? They align him inside, then that's an under front to us. They're under to the field. All right. If they had the 3 technique here, then he's more than likely going to be inside leverage here. That would be an over front. They're over that guard. So instead of going, hey, they're in a shade 5, 3, 8, we just say, hey, it's an under front to the field. And that tells all our coaches understand what it is. So now you've heard all the techniques. Now we can use one word to break the verbiage down to where the whole entire offensive line understands, hey, they're in an under to the field. Now, if we were calling our strength to the tight end, let's say we were on the defensive side of the ball right now, and Coach Chavis said, hey, we're declaring anytime they attach the tight end, don't matter if he's to the field, to the boundary, we're going to declare our strength to the tight end. So we want to be in an over front to the strength. So that's why so this could be called, from a defensive standpoint, you could see them, they've set him here, there's your tight end, that would be considered an over front to the strength. I probably just confused every one of you, but you kind of see what we're going through there, okay? How we've got if a linebacker, and I think, do we have the backer alignment? Do you have it in here? No, 10 and 30 of the backers. If a backer is aligned inside shoulder of that guard or outside shoulder of that guard, we call that, if he's here, it's a 10 backer. He's in a 10 backer technique. So you'll hear us talk to our linebackers, hey, get in a 10 look, get in a 10 look. That means get in that inside leverage of that guard. Hey, we need you in a 30 backer. See a 30 backer look? That means like a 3 technique, get in that 30 backer look. He's in a 30 backer there. Okay? The wider they go, hey, he's in a 40 backer alignment. Anything on that, Will? Just adjusting on that? The wider, a 50 backer. You usually don't see any wider than that. That's really wide there. It's really 30, 10. You'll see a 20 backer. A 20 backer is more of a head up, like a 2 technique. So that's, again, how we communicate with our linebackers and the alignment we want them in. Several different things as you look. Linebackers, as we teach our backers. There's different things we'll read. Some backers will read linemen. Some backers read backs. Depends on the tendency of an offense that they've given you. You may be reading that near back to you. If it's a 1-back set, all reads go to the running back. If it's 2-back set, I may be reading either the tight end or I may be reading the down lineman here. So it's important you're always calling out the strength. You'll hear our defense, as they come up, they're always looking for strength call. Right. Left. 2-backer. 2-backer right, 2-backer right. You're hearing that communication being communicated because it's telling everybody we've called the strength. These guys don't know how many backers in. They don't know if there's a tight end in. They're having to hear where is the strength, and that accords to where I align, where my alignment is. Okay, and so you'll hear our linebackers really communicating there as well. All right, go ahead. Now, same thing. Field is to the right. We've now set our tight end to the right. Okay? Our strength is to the right. All right, so we would call this an over front. There it is. He's in an over technique. There you go. He's in a head up. He might be shading a little bit. Wide 5, 3 technique, and I would call this a 9 technique right here. Okay? So when you start looking at these backers, look how wide he is now. So communicating wise, he's in a 40 or 50 backer look right here because he's a wide backer. You'll see a lot of these centers will come up and they're always IDing. They're going to try to find the mic. Where's the mic? You're pointing the mic. Why? Is because a lot of things that happen, everything is worked off the mic backer. If they bring an extra hat down, let's say that they brought this free safety, they brought him down. All right, we may be calling that the mic, but all of a sudden they bring the the free safety down and they bump the wheel backer in the box and they push him. We may change the point. So you may hear the center go, whatever that kid's name, 32, 38, 38's not the Mike. 6 is the Mike. 6 is the Mike. I'm going to re-ID the Mike, even though he's really a will backer. They're trying to push the points of where the zone combination or the power wrap or the counter kick, all that occurs, and it's because of it's all where the point backer is. How many backers they got in the box, and we're going to ID where the Mike would be. This is an over front. I don't know how I got off on that, but this is over front. This will be considered a Sam backer. You'll see that in just a few minutes. This to us is a tray formation. Tight ends attached. I would be willing to bet we have 2 out here off the line and 1 on the line up there. They defensively they were an over football team, an over defense. And we knew that, a lot of times if we know what you are by our film study, then we'll set our strength according to what we know you're going to set yours and try to work off of it. It's a chess match. Yes, sir.
I mean, and that's a good point, because you anticipating, because at your rate, you're wanting to get them out of misalignment. So when do you make that determination on holding your ground and calling your play, or just your team?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is, how much movement do they do as a defense? How much the scouting reports that we have on these guys, hey, look, they're going to line up in this and they're going to stem to this. So if we know that, we're going to set our strength because we know where you're going to be, and then we'll be able to work off of it. Because you'll see us set our strength and then switch our strength over. Doesn't mean you have to keep your strength there. So if we know that you're going to set your strength according to us, then we may flip-flop a tight end, what we call bounce. We'll bounce a tight end over or trade over. And we trade them over or bounce them over. The bounce would take 2 over. It means if we had another tight end in here, if we bounce, we would take 2. If we trade, we'd take 1. And we let you set your strength, and we're going to change the strength of this whole formation to the left, and now we're going to try to outflank it. It's all a numbers game.
How much freedom do you give your quarterback in making that determination?
No, not much. Not much. We do that from the box. You'll see a lot of we'll go fast. Tempo is misconstrued. Everybody thinks tempo is fast. Tempo is really the ability to change the course, so that go really fast, go real slow, huddle up. So changing the course. If we just played one way the whole time for defensive coordinators, it's easy. But if we change the tempo of a game, so you'll see us line up, and then we'll check the sidelines and to see where you're at with it. Some of it is gimmick. Some of it is, hey, we're truly trying to check where you're at and see if you're true to your tendencies. So that makes sense. All right, that's an over front. Let's go to the next one. Here's a bear look. Now you hear people talk about what is a bear front. A bear is basically stems out of an odd look, and you're really taking 5 defenders, 5 D linemen, and covering up the 5 O linemen. That's kind of what it comes down to. You can get to bear many different ways. You can line up in an over front and stem it all, shift it all to bear. But a bear front truly is you're a head up 0 nose, and you're covering everybody up that's on the line. Okay? So 5 for 5 essentially is what you've got right there. Now what you've done, because you've got only 5 offensive linemen and you've got now 5 defensive linemen all covered up, at this point in any pass protection, your backer, or your running back, is now considered what we call he's responsible for the roof. Anything above the bear front is called the roof. All right? And you'll see offensive linemen, whether they're here, whether they're tapping their head, they're tapping their butt, they're signifying back to that quarterback and back to that lineman or that running back that, hey, we've identified this as bear. All pass protections are off. You have the roof, or you have the extra hat that's coming in the box, whether it's a safety or whether it's a backer that's walked out, or it's any pressure off the edge, any nickel that comes in. It's yours, because we can only block 5. Okay, so that's considered a bear front right there. We obviously play a lot of bear. We'll get in and out of it. It's really difficult from an offensive coordinator standpoint to scheme against and go against. It has its weaknesses because it's forcing you on the back end to play different coverage there. You're going to be a lot of man coverage, and a lot of pressure is probably coming when you get bear front. You're susceptible to speed option. in a bear front. It's all about answers. What's your answer when they go to bear? What are you doing? It's a chess match. They'll line up in bear. Doesn't mean they got to stay there because they can stem out of bear. They can stem right back to a over or under front, or just a straight odd front, whatever their base defense is. So, okay. This is Okie. Okie is nothing more than, and it's an odd front. It's what it is. And we call it Okie. And the way we identify this, there's a backer out here. We call him the Sam or the nickel Sam. Okay, and we would go Sam, Mike, Will, Jack. That's the Jack backer. Y'all saw a lot of odd front last year. That's what they played last year. They played a whole lot of odd. And that was their base defense. And so we see a lot of this. You see more and more defenses now kind of going into that odd look. They think it's better against a spread, a team that maybe passes the ball in different formations. And so when you're looking at this and you're game planning against this, it's really about the jack. Where is your jack backer aligned? And so we'll get into Okie front. Chief loves running Okie. You'll see us run some of this. And you can see very easy now how that you could say we're in an under front and let's stem to Okie. So if you were in an under front, you're taking that shade that knows he's here, 5 technique. You're in a 3 technique, and this guy now is hands on the ground. And on move, he stems, he steps up, he steps back, and you jump right into Okie front. Again, rules change when you go to odd from an offensive line standpoint right there. Okay. You can see, and there are teams that'll play the jack to the field. You'll see Okie with a jack to the field. Anybody know what that would mean? The jack is here is to the what? Where's he at now? To the boundary. So they would line the jack up here to the field. And so again, it changes a lot in your pass protection, just identifying where he's at. You'll see some people that'll put the jack in the middle. They'll put the jack on the hash, or they'll stack the jack in here and move him around on snap when they're bringing pressure. You can really disguise a lot of pressure here. Usually when you start putting someone over that center with 2 backers in the box, we now call that an odd stack defense. Okay, because they're odd and they're stacked behind. So see, that was there's a lot of people still running an odd stack, but that was, I guess, probably back in early 2000s, the odd stack was really kind of the end thing, and it was causing people to change their rules on some things. Still, some people run that today. It's a good defense. Go ahead. So defensive alignment, just a base over front defense, and this is just the way we call it. You heard me talk a little bit about it. You got your end, your tackle, and your nose. If it was an over, if it was a under front defense, then he would be here. Remember now, your nose would be here, and your tackle would be there. I mean, it's just a base look. You got your Sam or nickel Sam. What you're finding now is the Sam position. The Sam linebacker now is you're seeing a lot of people play with nickel. A lot of nickel look. You're getting a lot of safeties that are now so athletic that they're dropping down and playing that nickel Sam position, simply because that they can bring pressure off the edge. They're tall, they're rangy, and really cause some matchups. When you start in formation people, you can get a better athlete on a faster kid. So you'll see a lot of nickel look. They're bringing that extra DB in. You go to dime, you get another DB in the field, take another linebacker off the field. You got the dime backer. So corner, strong safety is the way we call it. Free safeties to the boundary. Nickel Sam or Sam, Mike Will. That's the way we identify. We'll talk in a few minutes. I think we're going to talk kind of how we call our offense as well, position-wise. Okay, next. Just some coverage recognitions from both sides of the ball. Again, I told you I was going to talk defense as much as I'm going to talk offense. But identifying coverages from top down. That's the first thing you teach your quarterback, is you want him to look top down. Is middle of field open or closed? That's the first thing he's got to see. Is it open or closed? So he lines up, he goes through all, and we're trying to do all this at a very fast pace now. So he's got to identify, is the middle of the field open or closed? So I got to find the free safety, and where is the free? If the free's outside the hash, I got to eye the strong safety. Where is the strong? Is he on the hash, outside the hash? If there's too high look, that's considered middle field open. All right. If the free is in the middle of the field, and that means the strong safety is probably coming down, they're probably going to be bumping some type of pressure, possibly a man free look, then middle of field is closed. So again, his reads now, if middle field's open, I know I got to attack it in this way. If middle field's closed, I got to attack this way. So one safety, two safety, depth and alignment's key. Usually if they're off the hash, they're going to stay off the hash. If they're on the hash, looking at body demeanor. We talk to our safeties all the time. I actually spent a lot of time with them this spring in some meetings, and some of our guys, again, they don't understand what a quarterback looks at. They have no clue on that. They know what to do, they know where to go, but they don't understand that if your knees are locked or if your shoulders are high, chances are you're not coming down. You're going to stay right where you're at. But we want to be the same guy every day. We talk about that all the time, and everything we do, be the same guy every day. So if your alignment needs to, whether you're coming down, rolling down, whether you're rolling in the middle of the field, we want you bent at the knees, the hips, eyes up, shoulders back, so you can see what's going on. But this needs to be your look if you're staying here, or if you're coming down for pressure, or if you're rolling to the middle of the field. I don't need to see another staggered stance. I need to see the same stance every time. One of the things, excuse me, with the fast-paced offenses, it forces guys to lose the little things, lose the importance of his pre-snap alignment. If I'm a quarterback, we talk it all the time, if I'm a quarterback and I see anything, any change in demeanor of a DB, then I know something's up. Anything. And these guys study them hours upon hours upon hours. Our support staff, as they break down film and look, they're looking for the little things. Is his head down? Is his hands on his thighs, or is his hands hanging loose? When they're on his thighs, that means he's staying or he's going into back pedal. If he's hanging loose, then there's probably a chance he's going to be coming down. It's little things like that. It's different stagger of a stance. So that's really the same way with corners. Depth and alignment's critical. Is he inside? Is he outside? Is he head up? What constitutes man? Where's his eyes? If it's corner pressure, if someone brings a corner blitz, you'll hear us call cat. That's nothing more than a corner blitz off the edge. It's a cat blitz. The different things. How does he align? Is he peeking inside? If a wide receiver sees guys peeking inside, then now, hey, we got to alert someone that possible pressure is coming. The adjusters are the outside backers. You'll hear us talk about that all the time. Where are the adjusters at? They're the ones that leverage on the receivers. They're either inside, outside. They'll dictate whether it's cover 2 or cover 4. According to the responsibilities of these guys. So this is how we teach these guys in coverage recognition from both offense and defense side of the ball. Go ahead. We'll show you a few of these right here. This is cover 0, straight 0. You can see where everybody's eyes are. You got your quarterback. Hey, look, is middle field open or closed here? It's open because there's nobody back there. So here's what we tell them at that point right there. Man, look, we got some problems. That ball's got to come out, and this kid's mom's in the stands going, he's got to throw that ball because I can count. I may not know much about football, but I know they got more than we got to block. That ball's got to come out. We got to have a hot built in somewhere, or he's fixing to get hit. So cover 0, you can see again. Look at the body stance. These guys are taught right now. Hey, look, I know I have no safety help over the top. I can't get beat deep. I can't get beat deep. And, okay, go ahead. This is just a quick clip here of it. You can kind of see how they adjust to it. You can see the hot was to the field right there, or to the boundary. Ball's in the middle field. Hot's to the left. So the ball should have came here on a hot. There's your hot built in. So as a quarterback, you got to know where your hot is. Okay, all right. And we had an out cut there as well. All right, go ahead. Cover one is nothing more than you'll hear it also called as man free. So everybody's got a man, and they have middle of field is closed. So we know it's one. So now you got to get to your man answers. Same type of thing. We know pressure's coming, but we know if we keep a back in, we should have enough to pick them up. Okay, that's considered cover one to us. All right. Go ahead, Coach. We'll just keep rolling this. I know we're probably taking too long, but cover two. Cover two now, again, same thing. What are the responsibilities in cover two? Cover two now, these become your flat players. Your outside guys become your flat players. You see the alignment of your safety, middle field open or closed. What do you think? It's open. That's right. There's two safeties back. They're off the hash. Chances are they're going to stay off the hash. So where do you want to attack this? If y'all were going to scheme this, where would you want to attack? In the middle of the field. You want to run the football. You see a lot of people that run cover two. We get a lot of 0 and 1 in this league, but you see some people that run cover two. Your cover two is you give up something on each one of your coverage. You give up a lot in the run game in cover two. So you really either want to attack in the middle or run the football in this. But becomes your flat defenders. There and there, they become your deep half players. You see a guy drop in here. He very well could sink to the middle. If he sinks to the middle, that's called Tampa 2. You'll see a Tampa 2 look at that point. They're trying to take a backer and drop him to the middle of the uprights. And it's turn and sprint at that point. Okay? This formation to us is 2 by 2, so you're balanced. Pretty much at that point, they would call the strength to the back or to the field. But that's cover 2, so we'll see some of that. Tampa 2 is usually in third and long coverages. You see a lot of that. You see some of that in this league, quite a bit, matter of fact, in third and long, because you just don't want to get beat. Give anything up underneath, don't get beat deep. And that's what we tell our guys as well. So one thing, let me add this. When you have two defensive linemen that are lined up in both three techniques, sometimes people call it a split. They're in a split look. Okay, all right. All right. Cover 3. All right. Now the difference, it's middle field's closed. Your flat players become your inside guys. So here become your flat players. All right. These become your deep third players. You can definitely tell the difference between cover 1 and cover 3. Cover 1, those guys, their eyes, their demeanor was more on the wide receiver. They were more here. They knew that I couldn't get beat deep, but also if I did, I had help behind me. Okay? Here, we're in cover 3. I'm going to try to make it look like cover 1 as much as I can, but I know on snap, I can't get beat deep. I got to be bailing out of this thing because my flat players are coming. Your flat players become your inside guys. These become some of your curl flat guys. So again, you can see that. That would be, you can see there, that's you can look, they got one of their backers walked up on the line. They're an odd look. Okay, go ahead, Coach. Same thing. Cover 4. Cover 4 is quarters. So now you're going to have 4 defenders back covering a quarter of the field. So each one has their quarter of the field. And the safety players are still run support guys. So you'll see some teams that'll play a lot of quarters, but really when you look at it, it's a matchup man. That's what it is. You can call it quarters all you want. But if that inside receiver gets to a depth of about 8 to 10 yards, it turns into man coverage. And so that's what you've got to find out. But these guys are heavy on their feet because they are run support players. They have to support in the run in quarters coverage. The moment that those guys start pushing deep, and once they get to a point of no return, those safeties now become into matchup look. It's a man look at that point. So their eyes are into the backfield a lot. They'll eye to the backfield. They'll check. They'll eye the tackles. If you're a wide safety, you'll eye that tackle. If that tackle pops high hat, he knows it's pass. I got to get my eye on number 2 and find out what I'm doing. If that tackle pulls, that tackle has low hat down, then now my eyes got to get in the backfield and I got to be able to run support. Go ahead. 42. Anybody know, take a guess what 42 is? 4 to the field and 2 to the boundary. So they're playing quarters to the field and cover 2 to the boundary. Some call it cover 6, some call it quarter, halves, some call it 42. It's all in the lingo of it. And so in this case here, we're calling it 42. That's telling the first digit is the field. So as the quarterback is studying film, he sees the first digit. Because, hey, look, I'm going to look at all cover 42. Well, that means it's 4, cover 4 to the field, 2 to the boundary. And that's what you're seeing there. So you're seeing a combination of 2 coverages. If you saw 24, which we really don't, that would tell him, hey, to the field it was cover 2, to the boundary was quarters. If it was 41, if it was in another formation, say it was 3 by 1, and it was cover 41. It would be cover 4 to the field and what to the boundary? Cover 1 to the boundary. Yeah. So that's just, again, just some lingo and how we communicate. Okay, go ahead. Just personnel groupings, things that I got about 10 minutes here, but things that you want to hear, that we hear, and maybe you know, but you don't know exactly what it all meant. We'll always categorize our personnel groups by saying how many running backs and how many tight ends are on the field. Same way with defense. They want to know, and you see some of these guys on Saturdays and Friday nights and Sundays, they'll hold cards up. Defenses will hold cards up, and it'll say 12. It'll say 21. It'll say 10. It'll say 11. Okay, all they're doing is they're identifying what the personnel groupings are on the field. And the reason being is because a lot of that is how does defenses sub? So for example, if you see 10 held up, or you hear someone on the sidelines going, hey, they're in 10 personnel. That's 1 running back and no tight ends. Okay, so if you saw 1 running back and no tight ends, would you want to be in your base defense with a true Sam backer in there? Would you want to? I hope you are. We're going to put a lot of points on you. No, you won't. You're going to see when they see 10 personnel, there's no tight end on the field, they're immediately going to bring a better athlete or a nickel Sam or someone else on the field that's going to help them out. They may go dime at that point. They may bring another 2 backers in, or two DBs in. 11 personnel just means 1 running back and 1 tight end. Okay? That's our base personnel. We'll base out of 11. We'll be in a lot, but we're based out of 11. 1 back, 1 running back, 1 tight end. And our tight ends all over the place. 12 personnel. 12 is 1 running back and 2 tight ends. You'll see us in a lot of 12 personnel. Okay? 20 personnel is 2 running backs, no tight ends. 21 personnel is 2 running backs and 1 tight end. And so again, that's the way both offensively and defensively we communicate to our players. And so they understand that. A lot of our substitution packages occur off of those numbers. That usually comes from the box. So it's important to have GAs and coaches up in the box that are immediately watching sidelines and seeing what kind of personnel grouping offensively is coming on the field. They're communicating down to Chief, hey, they're going 21, 21, 21. Because Chief, it's hard to have and call a defense and look and find the personnel. You can't do that. You got to have people in the box that are going to tell you, hey, they're in 21 personnel, and he hears 21, 21, and he's making his call to make sure that we get the right personnel on the field. We get that true Sam on the field. We get another backer on the field. We may be in a goal line look at that point. Okay, go ahead. Skill layout. Let's talk a little bit of offense. Just so I know I've been speaking predominantly defense and back and forth, but 3-back for us is a tight end. That's just kind of what we've called it. 4-back is our running back or a tailback. A 9-man is predominantly our boundary wide receiver. That's the bigger wide receivers. You're going to see a lot of man-to-man, a lot of field rotation. any pressure to the field. You see a lot of one-on-one opportunities to the boundary. Cortland Sutton was a 9-man for us this past year. DeAndre Hopkins was a 9-man for us. Mike Williams was a 9-man for us. Martavius Bryant, a 9-man. They're the bigger bodied wide receivers that present the one-on-one matchups to corners to where they're having to use their body as their leverage points, because you're going to get some one-on-one matchups. The 5-man is predominantly a slot wide receiver. Does not always have to be slot. We want this guy to be a bigger bodied receiver. This guy is going to take, he's in a lot of crossing routes, a lot of middle of field routes, a lot of things on the edge that he's going to be required to hold the point. What I mean by that is we're trying to get the ball outside of him. He's got to hold that point on maybe that nickel Sam or that Mike Backer. And so he's got to be a bigger body, a stronger receiver. This guy needs to be really physical. Okay, does not mean he can't play outside, because he can in some of our different formations. But predominantly, you will see him, and a lot of times he's on the line. His splits are usually -1 to -2 above that hash, or if not on the hash. The 2-man for us is the speed guy. He's the speedy guy. He's the fly sweep, the jet sweep guy. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can line up in the backfield. He's all over the place. He can play the field. He can play the boundary. But he's a mismatch. Try to create mismatch. Okay. Trey Quinn this past year for us was the 2-man. James Prochet this past year was a 2-man for us. Now we would put James some at 5, but we would have 2-man there. Sammy Watkins was a 2-man. Artavius Scott, 2-man. Adam Humphries, 2-man. These guys are able to move all over. How can I create a mismatch with these guys on a DB or a linebacker? Again, we use numbers rather than letters. Some people use Z receivers, X receivers, Y receivers. Some use A, B, C, D. You call it tomato, I call it tomato. Potato, whatever you want to do. I mean, it's the same. But it's just how you call things and how it works with your system. We do it because we'll use a route tree. We'll have a route tree with us. So again, say a 6 route for us is a go route. And if I want 36 called, and that would be the call, 36, or 56, or 21, a 1 is a hitch, a 2 is a slant. If I call 22, then I know that the 2-man is running a slant. So and everybody knows from meetings and practice that if you got 22 called, everybody else has to understand what is your complement off a slant route. What's my complement off a vertical route? If I call 36, that's the 3-back on a go route, wherever your alignment was by formation, whether you're inside or outside, wherever it is, you're on a go route. Now, what's everybody else's complement off of a 6 route? So, and that's just the coaching part of it. I can't tell you those secrets. All right, the 100 series means that it's 5-man protection. It's 5-man protection, and basically what we're saying right there that we're telling these guys, if I call 136, that's telling our quarterback that, hey, look, I know I've got probably an empty look, or the back's going to leave me, and I know that I can only block 5 here. If they bring 1 extra, I gotta get the ball out. So 136 is that's what he would call it. Step and go 136, boom, here he goes. Okay? All right. Just real quick here in the last couple minutes. Is this it? This and the counter? Is that it? Is that all we got left? This is just our base run. Everybody in the country runs a power. Everybody in the country runs a counter. But this is how we would communicate that. This to us would be stack formation. We call it stack right. Why? Because we're telling these guys to stack on the right side. We're telling our strength of our formation is to the right. That's telling those 2 receivers where we want you on the right side. If I called stack right opposite, where do you think that these guys would align? Stack right opposite. Where would they align? Opposite of the call. We're setting the strength and telling these guys to align opposite of the strength. This is the power. Our tight end is now off the line, or unattached, we would call it. And his responsibility is the end. We're going to double to the backside backer, to the minus point backer. We would point the mic. The plus point would be to the Sam. The minus point would be to the Will. So if I'm teaching you as offensive lineman, say, hey, look, we're going to double to the minus point, to the -1. Well, who have they identified? Now, let's say that he changes the point and say they make some pressure moves, and here they come up, and the center repoints the Sam, then we would be doubling to the mic. It's all on where the center points the mic backer. Okay? We'll wrap the backside guard to the point backer. So in this case here, you're doubling to the backside, the minus point. You're singling up with the center. Your backside guard is now, and we call it a butt cheek pull. That means as you come out of this thing, we don't ever want you to open up. These guys are big. Once they get opened up, it's like turning an 18-wheeler around in a McDonald's parking lot. It takes them a little while to get them shoulders back straight. So we tell them to step and butt cheek. We want to step on your right butt cheek here, and keep your shoulders parallel down the hill, and we want you to bite daylight. The first sign of daylight, get in there. And you're wrapping for the point backer. Gap hinge with a backside tackle to keep the end from coming off on you. We want to make sure that he doesn't stem underneath us with that guard pulling. That's why we gap and then hinge it. So he's going to gap down to the B gap, hinge back out to the C gap. Sometimes we may not gap hinge. Sometimes we may read that end. It all depends on the call. And of course, we can have different answers out here on the edge. So that's our basic power.
How many RPOs do you have? Do you have one on every ring play?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's always an opportunity to get the ball out. And so that's a great question, but yes, we do. All right, next. Go ahead, play it. So let's stop it right there, Will. What formation is this? It is formation is stack right, opposite, okay? The five man now, I'm with you. The 5-man is aligned. How would you tell him? Where's he aligned at, would you say on that? The 5-man is your number 2 receiver here. There's him. His alignment is what? What would you say? +1 outside that hash. Okay? Where is the 2-man down here? His alignment is what? What would you say? Top of the numbers. Top of the numbers. Now, we're not going to split hairs here. So we're not going to come in here and go, hey, man, you need to widen out half a step. No, hey, look, get there. All right, let's don't make this game any more complicated than what it is. It's not bad. The 9-man up top, okay, he is aligned where? Top of the numbers. He's got to somehow get in there and dig that free safety out. That free safety is a bad boy at this level. All right, he's going to make some hits. Okay, if he could catch, they'd probably put him at corner or put him over at wide receiver. But this guy can't catch, but he can hit and he can run, so they put him at safety. All right. The corners are usually guys that as they look, is that they're tall, they're rangy, they're not as aggressive as a safety. Okay, and that's why that we but still have the capability to move and play safety with these guys. And so we like to. In our recruiting, we really want to recruit a lot of corners because we feel like they can move and play some safety for us at times. So again, this is stack right opposite, running the power to the left. Go ahead. Okay. All right, here it is. Now here's an attached tight end. This to us is deuce. It's D. When we start talking. We could meet all day and all afternoon on formations, but how we verbiage our formations. But go ahead, Will. Yeah, hold it right there. So this is deuce. That means it's a 2x2 set, but the tight end's attached. And so here we go. We would call this basically it's a one-back power with that tight end attached. And again, and we would call it same side. So this is a same side power. Go ahead. Go back. We could also run the same play and have the back over here. It's just another way to come across. So some of that's just game planning wise. Go ahead, go to the next play. Okay, go back to that drone view. So if we're in here, this is a lot of the view this is our drone view. You can see it's a great view. I mean, our quarterbacks really, we do a lot of teaching off of our drone views because of, this thing is flying probably 12, 14 foot. We try to get it as close to that quarterback as we can because we want to see what he sees. Okay. All right, go to the next play, Coach. Last one, I think. Counter. Again, everybody runs a counter. Counter and power, it's called gap schemes. Because you're blocking back, you're doing a lot of pulling. In this case here, this to us would be slant. If my 3-back was here and my 4-back was here, these two guys are in a slant alignment. Does that make sense? So if I had them here, it would be slant right. Okay, and I want them slanted to the right. But they're not, they're opposite. So this would be slant right, opposite. So you slant opposite of the call. That would be us. That would be we would communicate that. Okay. You can always line them up in stack right and motion him over. However you want to get there. It's all window dressing at that point. All right. Slant right, opposite, and we're going to run our counter to the right. Same thing, gap scheme, guard and tackle. Same responsibility as they did on the power. Again, the more I can keep the O-line as simple and as in tune, we want to keep those guys just hey, let's if we can say, hey, we're blocking that like the power, that's one less thing you got to teach a young man. Double to the minus point, backside pick the center. We're kicking now with the guard. So instead of him wrapping for the point backer, he's now kicking the first man on the line outside that tackle. And then the 3-back is what we call a cruise technique. He'll cruise, and his job is to wrap for the point backer. Gap hinge on the backside, or unless you're going to read him. Okay, go ahead. You can see a couple of these. I think that's about it. Is that the drone? Okay, there we go. There you go. So again, it's all a numbers game. It's all it is. Okay, that safety fit outside and should have fit inside. Go ahead, you're good. You're good. The coaching point here with these is watch your tight end. Okay, your tight end, he can get in too big a hurry, and when he does, he messes the whole play up. He's reading the block of that guard. If that guard kicks, he's wrapping. If that guard wraps, then he'll wrap outside of him. So it's all on how this first pass the tackle plays you. We call that a box technique. So that defensive end is boxing it. So that means we're on the inside leverage, inside number of that end, trying to kick, and now 18 is going to fit inside. You can see the wheel backer is now gap. He's not gap sound. He's outside his gap, and we should have a hat on that free safety is what we would call it. Hats for hats. Okay, go ahead. Is that it? Yep. All right. There you go. That's our world in about 45, 50 minutes. Hopefully you got a little bit of something out of this. Hopefully you get out on the football field, you'll be able to see what we're talking about a little bit more. You come to practice, you hear us communicating, you get a little bit of a better idea of what we go through, what these young men go through. It's a chore to be a student athlete. There's a lot of responsibilities that you have outside of this building, and when you come in here, we demand their absolute best. So it's been a pleasure. Any questions pertaining to any of that I covered that you want to ask about?
How much does the SEC, when you get in the SEC and when you've watched on film, how much does the league blow up your best plans, or do you always have something? Do you always feel like you have an answer?
Well, I think every play has an answer. You know, and you know what the answer is. Now sometimes they got great answers too, and so as far as without just disclosing a whole lot with it, I mean it's you've got answers. If they're going to bring this certain pressure, there's always a weakness somewhere. It's just whether or not you can do they hide their pressures good enough to where it's too late to get to your answer. That's the question that we will find out with a lot of our quarterbacks. A lot of it's dictated on how they align their defensive front.
Did your fascination with scheme come out of maybe growing up in coaching with maybe a talent deficit? Is that where
No, not really. I mean, I just felt like, what can we do and do it at a fast pace that would give our guys an advantage. And so, as far as talent-wise, I mean, I've had incredible talent running this, and I've had not so much incredible talent running it, and we've had success at both levels with it. Obviously, we would, great players make you great coaches too, so we understand that. But we also know that this, as you can see, limits some things of what defenses can do to you, and it's all on the alignments of things.
Chad, you gave the example of the 136 call, 100 for the blocking series,
Right.
tight ends running the 6 route. Is that called in the huddle, and are there other number combinations for the other receivers, or is that a check at the line?
No. That's could be a check. Absolutely could be a check. Not a huddle, because we don't huddle. But when we did huddle, we'd call something else. But when we do come to the line of scrimmage, would he make a 136 call? Or would he make, let's say he may make a 557 call?
But that's among a series.
Oh yeah. You got 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 400 series, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 series. So 9 something, 7, you may go 756, maybe 7-man protection with a 5-man on a 7 route or a 6 route. So it's all, they're listening to the thing. If you try to hear it all, you're going to get totally confused. But we tell our guys, offensive linemen, just listen to what you're supposed to hear. Don't listen, you don't care what that tight end's doing or that running back's doing. All you want to know is, one, who do I got to block? Is it a gap scheme? Is it a zone scheme? Am I pass protecting? If I am pass protecting, do I have help? And which way are we sliding it? So, yeah.
Coach, I saw that you used the drone so you can.
Yeah.
The team will be going to Dallas to play. You mentioned earlier in your presentation that some of the players have never played at a pro field. Will you have an overlay of that when you do your teaching?
Oh, absolutely. No, we will. And of course, these guys have played. The majority of these guys, outside of the freshmen, hadn't. And then the guys that were redshirted last year. But no, absolutely. We'll have that. That'll be a Sunday night meeting right there. And it'll also be a Saturday morning meeting before we go out to the field that day. There's no doubt about that. Just to remind them. And it's very important for special teams, too. Yes, sir.
Coach Chavis, he'll be on the field, right? Is that one
Oh, yeah.
because of the speed of everything?
Last year he was down, then he moved up, then he moved back down, and I asked him about that, and he just said no, I had to be on the field. It was a lot that dictates on, if you got a bunch of freshmen, you got a bunch of young kids playing for you. You want, Joe is in a box, but Joe's been on the field, and it's a little different because he and I are working together and all that. But there's times that you have a lot of freshmen that, they need to hear, and they need to see the urgency on the coordinator's face. They don't need to hear it; they need to see it and hear it. So,
Coach,
yes, sir.
At the press conference when you first introduced, you mentioned that you were a football coach. I learned from a coach down in Portland, Gregory Portland, Ray Atkins. I wonder if you had studied him or any of his.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great program. You bet. I've seen a lot of his. That was split back veer, wing tee.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that is, a wing tee, really, if you want to look at it and talk about it. We run the veer. I was talking to a great veer guy the other day, and I said, hey, man, we run the veer too. So if we don't pitch it here, we'll throw it there. So, anyway, I just love to.
Football in its natural state.
You know what? Where's Brooks at? Brooks Cockrell. I'm giving him all the credit for that. And our recruiting department and social media department, I challenge them weekly. They have brainstorming, we call them think tank meetings, and they set it up, and they're to throw anything on the wall, anything that something may stick, and I want them to think outside the box. And I challenge them, every group, but this group in particular, because we got to be so active and we got to be so creative, and they came to me. It was probably, and I'm sure Brooks would probably say, hey, I had several other guys. Cody Vincent was another one, it's a big part of it. But he came to me, and Brooks is from Arkansas, and not only did they come up with football in its natural state, but they came up, and everything you see now has the state outline on it for us. And he may win a Nobel Peace Prize out of this deal and that one. But I thought it was, I said, this is brilliant. And so yeah, I had nothing to do with that. That's all those guys, and they did.
It's going to be your big slogan thing.
Oh yeah, that's who we are. And so speaking to recruits, what is the natural state? What does it mean to be football in its natural state? We all know what Arkansas in its natural state, there is the natural state, but what is football in its natural state? And that goes back to, how we develop young men as a person, as a player, or as a person, as a student, and a player.